This is everything you need to know to plan your first or 50th international trip. I'm Chris, this is Yellow Productions, and in this video, I'm going to share my collected wisdom of having done lots of international trips in the last 20 years, millions of miles have flown, thousands of hotel nights, and all boiled down here into one video. This is a request from last week. A fellow explorer said, Chris, can you do a video about how to prepare for international travel? Everything from how to plan for international travel, how to enjoy the journey, what to do, how to behave when you're in a foreign country, and some tips for avoiding jet lag I have for you to conclude it all before I take some Q&A from the live audience on this stream. So first, let's go ahead and start with step one to any international trip. If you're going to another country that's not your own, doesn't matter where you live or where you're going, you're gonna need your ticket to entry, and it's not your airplane ticket, it's your passport. But not just any passport, you also need a passport that has a certain amount of validity. Different countries have different requirements, but the golden number is typically 6 months. So you might look at your passport and be like, it's good for another 2 months. I'm good to go. There are countries that will not let you in if your passport doesn't have at least 6 months of validity, and it's typically 6 months of 6 months before the expiration at the time that you plan to depart the country, not the time that you plan to arrive. So definitely that's one that catches a lot of people off guard. So take a look at your passport, make sure you've got at least 6 months on it. Now, in addition to a passport, depending upon where you're going, you might need some kind of additional entry visas, electronic travel authorizations. It seems there was a point in the world where it was like, just show up and there's a lot of visa-free travel. But now there's more and more countries want to know who's coming, who's going. And even if it's not a formal visa, meaning you don't need to show up to an embassy or submit in your passport, many countries you need to fill out some kind of web-based thing and pay a little bit of money. So there's definitely this distinct global shift away from paper-based things to stamp and digital-based things that you do on a website. Now, looking at the different types of entry documents for countries, you've got the standard consular visa. This is the one that back in the day you would show up to an embassy or a consulate, or you would mail your passport someplace and they would actually put a little stamp or piece of paper in it that says you're approved to come here. There are also visas on arrival, which countries will say, well, you don't need one, but we'll still give you one once you get here. There's an electronic visa that you apply for online ahead of time. And then finally, there are these electronic travel authorizations. Sometimes they have different names in the European Union. They're called the ETIA in the United States. It's called the Electronic System for Travel Authorization in the United Kingdom. It's called the ETA. Filling out these things doesn't guarantee you entry, but you do want to do it before you go. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck for a long time when you get there. And many airlines might not even let you board if you haven't filled out one of these electronic travel authorizations. All of us make mistakes. I forgot to fill out one of these once when I was on my way to Australia and I got to LAX airport and the United Airlines would not let me check in. They're like, we don't see a record of your electronic travel authorization. Good news is I was able to just from my phone at the airport, go to the website, fill it out, and within 10 minutes, that was able to go through the system, propagate to United. They could see it and they could check me in. But I wouldn't bank on that. That is not a good, if you're planning, that is not a good plan. You definitely want to do all of these electronic travel authorizations. I would say at least 72 hours before you go. Don't wait until you're at the airport to figure out that you need to do it. Yeah, and West Coast Toys and Games says, I was surprised to hear that Australians needed an ETA to come to Canada. I know, it's becoming more and more prevalent. More countries, more places are making you fill out these online things and pay a little bit of money. Okay, so The other thing you might want to look at as like not an entry document, but something to be aware of, and I see a lot of people get hung up on this, is if you are going to be driving in your international destination, you should take a look at whether you need an international driver's permit or not. And sometimes people say the international driver's license is really not such a thing. The way this international driver's permit process works, and by the way, Japan is a big stickler on this. For most countries, if you want to drive in Japan, you need an international driving permit. What an international driving permit is it is a translation of your driver's license into, international languages. And so they're typically valid for not as long as your regular driver's license. You need to bring your driver's license and you need to bring this. In the USA, you can get them from AAA. In Canada, you can get them from like the Canada Automobile Association. So check out whether you need one of these, but make sure you bring this and your driver's license because they only work together. This is not a replacement for one. And then step 3 in your preparation is, what other documents do you need when you come with you? And they might not just be visas or things like that, but when I mean documents, I mean like, itineraries for your flights. Many times you'll get to countries and, when you get to immigration, they might ask you to provide proof of your departure flight. So you want to have those things printed out. You want to have printouts of all of your flights. You want to have printouts of all of your hotels. And you might say, Chris, that is so old school. I have them all on my phone. I have them all on my email. Are you sure that you will have an internet connection in immigration or in customs at your airport of your destination? Maybe not. That might be in a basement, so it's good to have them printed out. Or what if you lose your phone? Or what if your phone gets stolen? So it's totally appropriate to have those things printed out. It's totally appropriate to have them stored on your phone or in your email. It's also appropriate to have them maybe on a laptop and computer or on a hard drive, so you've got a few copies of the important documents that you're gonna need. And if you've got something like extra important, I typically take a photocopy of my passport and place them in my luggage as well. So I'm like, if I lose my passport, at least I've got a photocopy of it. I've got my real one. I've got a copy of one. I've got like a digital one. And so somehow I can get all these things we need. And you can even have like an offsite lifeline, which is email to a friend, email to a relative who's not coming with you, so that, you can like in a pinch, maybe call them and try to figure out how they can fax you something or email you something if you've somehow lost all of your devices. Elliot recommends take screenshots. Yeah, take screenshots of things. Screenshots of, boarding passes, of confirmations of your ETA. It's absolutely good to have that documentation. Art, watching the live stream, is gonna fact check my info on ChatGPT. All right, Art, fact check me. I appreciate it. If I'm wrong, let me know what ChatGPT says about it. Kathy says, what if I am cruising back home from the USA as things that you need for the cruise? I mean, I think that the standard things that you would need to board an airplane, you would need the same things to, cruise back to Australia from the USA, which really would just be your passport would get you on that as an Australian citizen. Okay. So, step 4, after you've got all your documents ready, is to do some pre-travel medical preparations. What might those be? Well, depending upon where you're going, certain countries might have certain requirements for vaccinations, immunizations. So you should check to make sure what you have and what your country that you're going to needs. I tend to stay up to date on all the ones that just like my standard doctor recommends when they're like, get these things. And I'm like, okay, I will get those things. It is also important, if you're traveling with medication, to verify that that medication, whether it's prescription or over the counter, is legal in the country that you're going to. And this is one that gets a lot of people. Singapore can be really strict about not just controlled drugs and substances, but there's even things that you might not expect in countries like in Japan. It is illegal to bring in like Claritin D, like decongestants they don't allow in Japan, or like typical like over-the-counter things that you would get in the US, you can't bring into Japan if it had decongestants in it. Though depending upon the country, some countries might allow you to have a small supply of it. Like you might be able to have like a week of it for personal use, but not a ton of it. So check out the regulations at your country that you are going to. Jonathan says Benadryl, for example, is illegal in Japan. West Coast Toys and Gaming says, I still ask for a paper boarding pass from the kiosks. Is faster at the gate than digging out the phone. West Coast Toys and Gaming, I totally agree with you. I will use the electronic boarding pass on my phone if I'm going domestically within the US, but if I'm traveling internationally, then I will always print out the paper boarding pass, because I also feel it's worthwhile when I've found getting to countries, specifically if you're connecting, and we're going to talk about connecting flights and things like that as we go, but they'll like, where did you come from? And like, it's one thing to like explain flight number, this and that. It's another thing to just have the paper boarding pass to be like, this is the flight that I just got off of. This is the flight that I'm going from. Kathy asks about where you're going. Proof of flight homes. I would need proof of cruise home. Yeah, absolutely, right? Just say like, here's my cruise ticket. You would print out your cruise itinerary and show that to them. So there we go. Okay. So, step 5 is to consider travel insurance. Now, if you've been a viewer of this channel for a long time, you'll know that I have certain opinions about whether I get travel insurance or not, which I'll tell you in a moment. I've made a whole video about travel insurance, so if you want to dive in like deeper into the subject, you can check that out after you watch this video. But some people get travel insurance when they travel and consider it essential. There are 3 major types of travel insurance. The first type of travel insurance is trip cancellation and interruption insurance. This reimburses expenses if you need to cancel for some reason, serious illness, death in the family, natural disaster, depends what your thing covers, or if your trip is interrupted because of something like that. That's one type of travel insurance. By the way, you can also get travel insurance that like bundles all these things together, but these are the 3 major buckets. The second major type of travel insurance is travel medical insurance. This is the health insurance component. If you get sick or you get injured, to be able to cover your medical expenses. If you, in your home country, if your health insurance does not cover you when you were in a different country, you should absolutely get travel medical insurance. And then there's often another component to this travel medical insurance, which is component 3 of travel insurance, which is what they call emergency medical evacuation insurance, which would pay for like a medical airplane to take you away from your destination and to some place that has better health care. You know, if you're going to an African nation, you might not want to be hospitalized in that country. You might want to be hospitalized in Europe, for example, or back in the USA or wherever your home country is. And so the medical evacuation insurance would pay for you to be transported back to your home. People often ask me, Chris, do you have any travel insurance companies that you recommend? I don't sell travel insurance. I don't have any affiliate deals with travel insurance. Our health coverage that we have here in the USA covers us when we're abroad, and it also covers like medical evacuation, so we typically don't get those things. And then trip cancellation interruption, we typically just purchase refundable tickets, refundable. I mean, they're not always refundable, but they're changeable. At least changeable airline tickets with a fee, refundable hotels within 72 hours. And so we're typically not booking a lot of things that has us out of pocket if something happens. And so we typically don't get travel insurance, but to each their own. Like I say, if you don't have medical coverage, you absolutely should get it. Henry in the chat says, Chris, do you have any thoughts on the TSA announcing that eventually passengers will not have to remove their shoes when going through security? Will TSA pre-check still be worth it? I mean, Henry, right now, shoes, yeah, what's her name? Gnome. The Department of Homeland Security, the Secretary for the U.S. Department of Homeland Security just announced today that they're looking to eliminate you got to take your shoes off when you go through security. And they said they're looking at eliminating some other regulations that were put in after 9/11, like you got to take out your laptops, you got to take out your liquids. I mean, if they eliminate all the things that make pre-check worth it, then it's not worth it. But still, today, pre-check is absolutely still worth it because they're still taking out electronics, they're still taking out liquids, and you can keep all those things currently on when you go through pre-check. And now if they remove all those, it might not be worth it, but it might still be, because then there just might be still a shorter line when you go through pre-check. Okay. Killer Chronicles asks, do you play the "Do you know who I am" card when the booking agent won't upgrade you? Killer Chronicles, I don't think I've ever played the "Do you know who I am," and I don't think it would get me anywhere, even if I did. I'm not really all that. I do love it when like flight attendants or gate agents like recognize me. I do love when they say like, "I know who you are," and then I hand them a sticker. So there we go. That's always a lot of fun. Okay, the step 6, a question people always ask me is, Chris, what is the best way to get currency at my destination? And you might first start to look at and say, do you need foreign currency at your destination? Some countries have gone like almost entirely digital. Now, this being said, I would always still have at least a small amount of foreign currency on you in case you need to get a taxi, even if they don't have change. Like, people still take it. They might not give you change, but you can get out of things in a pinch if you have that foreign cash. Now, if you're going to some place that you've like never been to before, you're unfamiliar with the airport, you may want to get some foreign currency before you leave your home country. If you're going to do that, get it from your local bank, get it from your local credit union, get it from American Express. The bank that you bank with might not have it in branch. They might have to do like a mail service where they like mail it to you or they mail it to the branch. So give yourself a couple weeks to do that foreign process to get yourself, $100 or $200 of foreign currency. What I tend to do is I tend to use the ATM or the bank machines when I get to that destination. Nearly every international airport will have some ATMs that will accept international debit cards, and so this is me withdrawing some yen at an ATM in Japan. It is definitely worthwhile to get a debit card that doesn't charge international ATM withdrawal fees. In the USA, the Charles Schwab debit card is one of those. And when you're in your destination, it's also worthwhile to look at like not all ATMs are made the same. Not all of them charge the same fees. Look online in the destination, which ones charge the best rates. The ones at the airport that are like the Travelex all world currency thing, those are gonna charge you the most. But if you find some that are like just by a legitimate bank that's local to that country, those are the ones that are probably gonna charge you the least. In Japan, I like to go to 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven has some of the best ATMs, some of the lowest rates, and accepts the widest amount of foreign cards. What you should avoid is the airport teller kiosks, the kiosks in the airport that change money with a human. Those are going to charge you the most exorbitant rate. And what I also do is when I was in London recently, I didn't get any paper currency. I paid for everything with my credit card. And because I had some paper currency from the last time I was there, but I didn't use any of it. Like, I had that paper currency, it was an emergency, but I was able to make all of my purchases with a credit card. And more countries and places are going digital. Definitely you want to make sure you get a credit card that has no foreign transaction fees, so you're not paying an extra 4 or 5% on top of all of your international purchases. Art's recommendation, he keeps $50 in his phone case just in case it goes bad, which works. As long as they don't steal your phone, they can steal your wallet, but then you got to make sure your phone is there. Franco says, I had found good rates at Haneda Airport. Art says, in China, cash money is useless. It's all apps. Well, Art, I just had a friend who went to China, and he said the taxi driver would take cash, just wouldn't give him change. So, I feel like it's not all apps. You can pay, you just won't get change. Kathy says, I use a Wise card. Wise is an interesting service. It's like this international banking service that you can open like accounts and debit cards and put money in the local currency. And so that's a pretty good way if you don't have a card that will give you no international transaction fees to be able to open one and put different currencies and then be basically paying in the local currency with the card. Okay, thank you for that tip, Kathy. BTVS says, I order currency from my bank because my bank will charge ATM fees and the ATM will charge their fees, but there are banks that will refund you the fees. Well, Fargo does not. Good. So the other thing you want to be aware of if you are using a ATM card or debit card abroad or credit card abroad is you want to avoid these offers. So this is called the dynamic currency conversion offer, and you'll see it on ATMs, you'll see it on credit card terminals when you're in a foreign country using a credit card or a debit card or bank card that the machine detects as from a different country. You will get this offer in your language based on your card, and it'll say this ATM or this point of thing offers this conversion to your home currency. Instead of withdrawing 303 Great British pounds, you can withdraw 467 US dollars, and it's only marked up at a 14%. 14.9, 15% rate. The currency conversion that they're charging is 15%. It's crazy. These are always bad deals, so you always want to decline. Even if you have to pay international conversion fees on your credit card or bank card, I guarantee they are not 15%, so you would continue without the conversion and go forward with the charge in the local currency and not have it translated to your home currency. Speaking of digital payments, it's important to employ what I call a smart wallet strategy. What is that? That means not just bringing one credit card, but bringing a few different credit cards from different banks and different credit card networks. I like to travel with a Visa, a MasterCard, and an American Express, all from different banks. So I will have a Visa from Chase, I will have a MasterCard from Citibank, and I will have a American Express from American Express. I might have a Capital One card too. Why? Well, because if one card gets declined or locked or not accepted, you've got a few other choices that you can get accepted. Also, when it comes to debit or bank cards, I would recommend not traveling with your bank or debit card from your primary account that has all of your money in it. I would recommend opening up another checking or savings account with a bank card linked to it that just has a small amount of money in it, say $1,000, that you only use for international withdrawals, so that if you use it at a sketchy ATM and somebody steals it or somebody steals the PIN, you're not out a lot of money if they get into that account. I have 2 different traveling ATM cards that I travel with that are part of different networks that I take, that each one has like $1,000 in it, and then I just replenish it when I get home for the next trip. Okay, enough. Yeah, Art says crispy, flashing the plastic, flashy. West Coast, thank you for your support. West Coast Toys and Gaming says having cash was very helpful in Taiwan. Still widely accepted. Absolutely. In Taiwan, definitely cash is king there. Ati has another second for the Wise card. So convenient. All right, very good. Kathy says we learned that lesson when we maxed out our credit card and didn't have a backup. Ouch. Yes, indeed. Once you hit that limit, then you're like, what? If I've only got one, what next? What next? Okay. So the final step for preparation before we get into the journey is booking flights. And so there is totally various strategies for booking your international flights. Definitely a direct flight from your country to the destination country is going to be the easiest for a whole host of reasons. It might not be the cheapest, but it's going to be the easiest, the most straightforward, because you have the least places for visa issues, connecting issues, legal issues. You only have to deal with one set of check-in and gate agents. You get on the plane, and then you get where you're going. Connecting, particularly if you're connecting in an intermediary country from your country and the destination country, can add a potential second place for a check. What kind of check? A second place for security check, a second place for immigration check, a second check for visa check. Different airlines, if you have your first flight on one airline and your second flight on another airline, can introduce more bureaucratic hurdles, because you might find if you're doing that, the airline that you're checking in with might not be able to issue the boarding passes for that other airline. And then when you get to your destination and you're connecting in that airport, you need to find some place that they can issue that second boarding pass. So this is where my preference traveling, number one, direct flight from where I'm starting to where I'm going. If I can't get that, then connecting flight, in countries. In like if coming from the USA, I'd rather connect someplace in the USA and then get a direct flight to my destination. Or if I'm going to say Japan, go to Japan and then connect within Japan someplace else, not go to Japan via Korea if I can help it, because that's just going to introduce another country's bureaucracy into my system. Now, if you can't, like if you really can't and you have to connect in another country because you're from the US, like I'm going to Malaysia. For like when I went to Malaysia, there are no direct flights from the USA to Malaysia, like at all, period. Can't do it. You got to connect in some other country. Then I would say consider connecting in a country that you can enter visa-free. Because if your flight is if your connecting flight is massively delayed or your arrival flight is massively delayed and you don't want to be stuck in airport purgatory, you want to be able to get a hotel in the country or go look around for a day, consider a country. In my case, I connected in Taipei, Taiwan, and as a US citizen, I was just connecting, but I had a 6-hour connection. And so with my 6-hour connection, I went through passport control and I entered Taiwan to like look around the outside security part of the airport just so that I had a little bit more to do. Okay. Now, those are all the things to prepare. I want to get into next the journey, like how do you handle, like once you're checking in the plane, what the international process at airports look like. But before I do that, I want to take a few comments from the chat. Art says, no direct flight between Malaysia and the US is crazy. Indeed, it is crazy. No KL to LA, it is crazy. And Alex says Malaysia pulled out of LAX. Yes, they sure did. Nothing, no flights to Malaysia from LAX. Art says I spent 4 hours in Chang'an between flights. Stressful. Bridgewater family says, how do you decide if you go by yourself or with your family? We tend to go most places as a family, but not always. I guess I'll answer it this way, which is there might be some destinations that I might not think are the world's best for a 5-year-old, and in that case, I might go myself. There also, might be like, oh, Girl might want to take the Curious Princess back to Taiwan to be with family there. And so, when we do that, then it's like they can go there, and maybe I go someplace else on my way there. I always do a what's new in Vegas video every year. And so that's when I can just crank that video out in about 2.5 days, on site in Vegas. And it wouldn't be a great family vacation because Chris is just trying to go to the most places and shoot the most things in it. So hopefully that helps. That's how I think about it. I realize most people probably aren't sitting here in the YouTube game, but there we go. Franya says, did you count Taiwan? It's another country you visited. Yes, I count Taiwan as a country I have visited. Points Traveler says, what country did you experience the longest customs line? Italy. Italy is the country, and it wasn't customs, passport control. I forever in Italy. It's super disorganized. Okay. Viet says, what's the longest flight the princess took? Flights to Taiwan, flights to Japan. So Japan, it's 10, 11, 12 hours. Taiwan, it's 13, 14 hours, something like that. Well, she's a pro. She's, she looks forward to the destination, looks forward to hotels. I mean, at some point she Pop, I want to be there now. I know you want to be there, princess. We'll get there soon. But she, I think it's one where if kids know they're going to have fun when they get there, then they'll, and you got enough cartoons for them and things like that, they can handle it. Chris Bates says, easiest passport control country, Singapore. Super easy. Friendly people. They've got mints at passport control, and you get a breath mint. You get a breath mint when you see the passport officers. Many of the lines in Singapore are now e-ticket gates. You don't have to see a person. You just put your passport in and you walk right through. Super easy and friendly. Okay. Art prices the hardest is in Egypt. They wouldn't let me in until I told them my ethnicity is ethnicity, not passport, but ethnicity. Crazy. Yeah, there are definitely some very strict countries when it comes to immigration. Okay, I'm thirsty, and then we'll get to the journey. What was Chris drinking today? Chris is drinking this today, Paca green tea. This Paca green tea is made in Singapore. There we go, product of Singapore. the honey has a very like interesting like floral taste to it. Like not all honey is created equal, right? Like honey from different flowers and different bees around the world has different tastes. This has a very strong floral taste from the honey. Pretty good, pretty good. I would get that again. Okay. Let's talk now. Step 8, navigating the airport. We're going to talk about departing the airport, and we're going to talk about arriving the airport. So, first thing you got to do, getting on your flight, is you got to check in. You can check in often on your phone, on the computer, or in person. If you can check in online, do that. The more ahead of time that you check in, generally the better for you, because if they have to change planes, kick people off because they're oversold, oftentimes they look at when did you check in, and the last people to check in are the people that haven't checked in, or the people who like get the boot off the plane. You might not be able to like complete your check-in online for national destinations. You might have to go to the airport and show somebody your passport, but at least you've done some of it. And in the airport's thing, they're like, oh, well, this person at least has started it. So they're better than others. But most airlines have gone to these kiosks that you start at. You go to the kiosk, you answer some questions. You'll get your boarding passes here from the kiosk. You'll get, sometimes you'll get bag tags from here that you need to put on your suitcases. Other times you take your suitcase up to the front. You might pay for your luggage at these kiosks. And then you go up to the bag drop line. If you had a complicated thing that the kiosk wouldn't work, then you would go like stand in line for a gate agent to like see you. Also worthwhile to pay attention, because people were joking that Chris sits in seat 1A all the time, or something like that, which is, in front of the plane, first class. If you've booked a higher class than economy, you might have a different check-in line that might be shorter than the standard economy check-in line. But after you've printed your boarding pass, then there'll typically be places where you can drop your bag, or if you've checked in online, you might be able to skip those kiosks altogether and just go straight to bag drop if you have bags to check in. After you've done that, then you head over to security screening. Maybe. We'll talk about that in a moment. But most airports, after you've got your boarding pass, you go to security screening, and they screen your luggage. Definitely allow ample time for security screening. You might say, Chris, what is the longest you've ever stood in a security screening line? I think it was in Osaka, Japan. I stood in a security line for like over an hour in Osaka. I mean, it was really long. But you might say, Chris, there have been longer lines. When there's global airport meltdowns and things like that, there can be longer lines, 2-3 hours. Pay attention to your destination. Pay attention to whether it's holiday travel season or things like that. Ask the people at your hotel if you're leaving, how early do I need to get to this airport to know how long you need to wait in this line. This is Orlando. This is Orlando Airport, which is often known for ridiculous security lines. Now, when I say sometimes this is the process, in some airports, they don't do security like to come into the airport. In some airports, they do security at the gate. Singapore and Malaysia in Kuala Lumpur are examples of where they do security at the gate, so you wouldn't have this step. Then in some airports, and this might be reversed, it might be in different orders, they will have a passport control here too. So there's immigration, which is when you go into a country, and emigration, which is when you leave the country. In the USA, there is no immigration check. There is no officer that sits there and stamps your passport that you've left. They just do that all digitally within the record system. But there are many countries that do that have a passport control when you leave. So you need to make sure you leave enough time for security, and you need to make sure you leave enough time for passport control. And then once you've gone through security and passport control, then you head to the gate, which is where you sit around and wait. I will say, absolutely make sure you download the airline's app so you can stay up to date. You can check the status. If you're going to be walking away from your gate, make sure you're checking the monitors regularly. Make sure you're checking the app regularly to see if the gate for your flight has changed, because you don't want to be hanging out in the lounge and then end up at your gate to be like, cool, I'm boarding in 5 minutes, only to find out that the flight was moved to another terminal or something like that. Now you got to run across the airport and you're late and you don't make the flight only because you didn't bother to keep up to date with where it went. Okay, you might also, traveling internationally, need to show your passport one additional time, which is here at the gate. Sometimes they do it when you board, they want to see it. Sometimes a gate agent will like walk the line of people and they'll do some markings on your passport. Sometimes you'll need to go up to a gate agent at a desk or something like that and show them your passport there too. There's also these funky, coming to the USA, there are some airports which do USA arrival security and customs in the airport in another country. So for example, if you are flying from Dublin, Ireland to the USA, then you will actually clear passport control in Dublin. And so when you're in this terminal in Ireland, because there's so many flights that go from Ireland to the USA, when you're waiting at this gate area, you're actually already in the USA. And so then when you get to your destination airport in the USA, you don't have to clear customs passport control when you get to the USA because you've already done it at that airport from where you've come from. Okay. So you go to the gate, you get on the plane, and then you arrive at your destination. Arrival process generally looks something like this when you're going internationally. This is at LAX. When you get off an international flight, you are generally in some sterile area. They call it a sterile area because there's like nothing there. There's usually no shops, there's no nothing, because you're sort of in this like purgatory land of like, you're not in the country yet, you're out of the country. If you are connecting, some international airports have it set up that you can connect internationally without entering that country. If that's what you're doing, then you'll want to find signs from the sterile area that tell you where to go to connect so that you can get back into the part of the airport that has all the gates. It'll be a much quicker process for you to do that and to go through connecting or transfer security process than it will to go through customs, passport control, all that stuff. So make sure you really pay attention if you're connecting to go the connecting way internationally. Also, depending upon where you're coming from, you might have to re-clear security at that airport when you're connecting. You might not have to. So like in Japan now, if you're coming from the USA and connecting internationally at Narita, they do not make arriving US passengers re-clear security in Narita. They just have a special like door. Like when you get off the US plane, you get into the sterile area and they say if you're connecting, go through the special door, and now you're just in the gate area to then go to your departure. Although at that point you're not in Japan, you're in the transit area of the airport, which is what they call that part of the airport that's like not the country that you're in, but not where you're going either. Okay, so if you are going, you're at your destination now, you're going to the country, you're not going through a security check to connect, then you go through immigration where they will look at your passport, look at your electronic documentation. Most airports frown on taking pictures in those areas, which is why I don't have a picture of a passport control. Instead, I have a picture of Singapore here, the signs that tell you of the e-gates that you can go to. If you're going to a country that has e-gates, meaning you can just like put your passport in and walk through, do that. We have found though, traveling with a 5-year-old, most countries' e-gates don't work with smaller children because they are based on the picture in your passport, and you know, little kids change too much, so we always have to go to like a desk with a person, which is like but if you are traveling with kids, check and see with like the people in the passport line to be like, do you have a line for families? A lot of times if you have kids in a stroller, they'll send you to a shorter line than the big line that has everybody in it, also typically for people who are in wheelchairs. Okay, so once you've passed through passport control, then you'll be in baggage claim to pick up luggage. If you've checked any luggage, if you haven't checked any luggage, then go ahead and continue. Once you have picked up your luggage or not, then you will go through customs, also a place that they don't like you to take pictures, but you pass through the customs hall. This is where you would declare alcohol, cigarettes, parrots, you know, like things that are non-standard that you might be bringing in. This is also where they might choose to inspect your luggage. Generally, there will be lines that'll say, do you have things to declare? Do you not have things to declare? Depending upon your country, you might have to have filled out a form that says like what you're bringing in, what you're not bringing in. This is where you might hand it in. So you're not in the country until you've made it through customs. This is one, you know, don't bring in fresh fruits, don't bring in meats. Like there's just a lot of things that like can't pass between countries. And yes, that banana can be a no-no. Like fruit is generally not often allowed between international countries. Even if you got it on the plane, they're like, I got this on the plane. They're like, you still can't bring it in. Save yourself some hassle by leaving it on the plane if you got some fruit. Codge Full of Love says I have a matching suitcase. I love my level 8. This is the level 8 Voyager suitcase right there. I'm glad you love your level 8 Codge Full of Love. I love this one because it's yellow and frankly, all their suitcase. They're doing a 20% off sale right now. If you haven't seen my zipper versus zipperless video, you can check that out. It's got a 20% discount code in it if you want to get 20% off your level 8 suitcases for the next week. Okay. So once you are in the country, then you need to get to your destination, your hotel, your Airbnb, your friends, wherever you're staying. Look this up before you get there. Like, don't just figure out you're going to get to the airport and then it's all going to be simple to get where you're going. It doesn't work that way. I mean, maybe it does. Like, you know, there are some places where, like, if you go to Las Vegas, it's pretty simple. You just show up and you get a taxi. You tell a taxi where you're going. I don't remember. This might be a picture of Las Vegas. This is like the rental car line. Ridiculous. But like, you know, you might want to pre-book some service to come and pick you up. When my mom and I went to Beijing, we absolutely did that. We pre-booked a like VIP transport service through the JW Marriott where somebody met us at the plane. Beijing Airport has this service where they'll have somebody meet you at the plane and walk you through passport control, customs, baggage claim, and then they will walk you to your transport, and then we'll then take you to the hotel. So like, if you're going to a country that you think you're not very familiar with and you think you might run into some hurdles, absolutely worthwhile to pay for a service like that. It was not expensive. It was like $10 more than a regular taxi would have cost us or something. Okay, so figure out what you're gonna do before you get there and then go ahead and execute the plan. Definitely avoid any people in your destination airport that are offering you rides. People stand around who are like, you need a taxi? You need a taxi? You never wanna ride from those people. And that's what Art right here says, yes, in many countries, it's much better to pre-book a car, pay more, save time, much better. What's the extra $50 completely? Okay, yeah, and that was one, I would say, you know, from the airport and to the airport. So Kuala Lumpur, just as kind of like the recent trip to a place that's, you know, like, I don't know, there's some things in KL that are very modern and there's some things in KL that are very chaotic. And I just had the like hardest time in Kuala Lumpur getting taxis that would take me to where I want to go. And I had like an early flight in the morning and I'm like, I need to leave the hotel like 6 in the morning. I don't know if there's gonna be taxis. I don't know if any grabs are gonna come. And so I pre-booked the hotel car to take me back to the airport because I knew it was gonna be there. And so there's some peace of mind of saying like, yeah, I paid an extra $10 or $20, but like, I know it'll be there. It'll be there for me. It'll be simple. They won't take me to some place that I don't want to go. And I know they'll speak my language too, because that's also something looking at your destination. If you're going to take a taxi, don't print out things in your language because the taxi driver might not speak your language. You will want to print out maps and destinations and the names for those places in their language so that you can show it to them in their language and they can understand the things that you're trying to show them. This kind of belongs in this section. It doesn't really belong after transportation, but it belongs more with like immigration, things like that. People always ask me, and we heard the question earlier, Chris, do you think TSA PreCheck is still worthwhile? There's TSA PreCheck, there's Global Entry in the US, and there's Clear. Chris, do you think these 3 services are worthwhile? We have Global Entry. Global Entry gives you faster immigration into the USA. You don't have to stand in the regular passport lines. Basically now, if you have Global Entry, which you pay something like The numbers always change, but it's something like $150. You get it for 5 years. Then when you come into the US in the current iteration at LAX, you just walk through this line that says global entry. They've got facial recognition. They say, Chris, welcome back. And you just walk right through. So passport control for people who have done global entry, have done the interview, have done the background check, basically doesn't exist, more or less. It also comes with TSA PreCheck. TSA PreCheck in the USA is a service that allows you to go through specially designated security screening lanes that the security is lighter. You don't have to take your laptops out. You don't have to take your liquids out. And then Clear is a service that kind of like bypasses the line waiting for the TSA ID check. It's like a retinal scan or something like that. If you have a credit card that reimburses it, go for it. Otherwise, it just depends on your airport, whether it's worthwhile or not. It's not worthwhile for us at in any of our airports that we travel through because the TSA PreCheck lines are always the same as the Clear lines. Okay. Chris Bates says the tip about the language is worthwhile. Always pull up your destination on Google Translate in a taxi in the local language, especially in Japan where the drivers don't speak any English. Absolutely. Rob says, my fiance of 10 years loves all your stuff. She says, thank you for the love, Rob's fiance. Okay. Oh, Kathy apparently said said my picture was the rental line in Seattle. All right. Could have been. Good eye, Kathy. Okay. So step number 9 now, you're in your destination. There's a few thoughts that I want to share with you about thinking within the country that you're going to, where you want to go, and what kind of hotels or accommodations you want to stay in. So I'm going to use Japan because we've been talking about Japan a lot. People often ask me questions about, Chris, going to Japan, how's the English there? What's the language barrier like? And for many countries around the world, it is often the same way that it is in Japan, which is that in the major places where they get a lot of tourists, the big cities in Japan, Tokyo, Osaka, Kyoto, English, decent. Taxi drivers don't speak it. Hotel staff will. Younger people in restaurants will. But if you go outside of the big cities, not a lot. And so if you don't want to learn any of the local language and you're worried about that language barrier, then you might want to stick to big cities where you're going because that's just where there will be more international people. That is where there will be more people speaking English. If you do want to like get out into the countryside of your destination country, you might consider hiring a local guide, hiring someone who speaks your language and somebody who speaks their language. And looking at hotels, if you're staying in the countryside, you might want to consider staying at Western chain hotels, staying at Marriott, staying at Hyatt, staying in Hilton. There will be times on my videos that I will advise, well, don't stay at those places when you're going internationally because they're going to be more expensive. Or do, because you might want to make sure that you've got some English-speaking staff while you're there. It was super great when we were in the Mount Fuji area of Japan, the Fuji Five Lakes area. We stayed at the Marriott there, and everybody spoke perfect English. It was great. No language barrier. OC girl speaks some decent Japanese, but her English is better than her Japanese. And so to have people who spoke better English was just great, specifically out in sort of this countryside where not a lot of people did. So that we always had a place that we could ask like questions from people who are fluent in our language. We heard some comments in the chat about, Google Translate being good. BTVS recommends the DeepL app also for translating screenshots. Thank you for that tip, BTVS. Okay, step 10. While you are in your destination, well, probably beforehand, worthwhile to read up on the scams. Be aware of what the common scams are in your destination, and then while you're there, to be vigilant towards those scams. Scammers prey on tourists who don't know what's going on, and so watch some videos about those common scams. If you're going to Bangkok, you might enjoy the Yellow Productions Bangkok Scams video where I talk about all the common ones in Bangkok. Okay. Now, you are on the ground. You're in your destination. You've got to the hotel, this and that. How do you stay connected? This is step 11. How do you keep your phones, your internet connected? I'm just going to cover this really briefly. Do you want to roam? Do you want to use your SIM? Do you want to use an eSIM? Do you want to get a new SIM? International roaming, you got your phone, you just pay a ton of money. You just go to the other country and you pay per megabyte, costs you a fortune. Don't do that. Your local carrier might have a package to be like $10 a day, data in this country. You could do that. You could buy a physical SIM card when you get to that country to put in maybe to supermarket, something like that. Or you can get an eSIM, which is just an electronic way of doing that. You can do it before you go. That if your phone supports eSIMs, if you have a modern phone, it probably does. We've been using SIM Local on all of our recent international trips. And we've had a great experience. This video is not sponsored by SIM Local, but if you do want to pick up a SIM Local eSIM, there's a 10% off code in the description that you can check out. Okay. Culture, step 12. So how do you be a good guest? I think it's important at your destination to you might not want to learn the whole language, but learning a little bit of the language. Learning basic phrases like hello and thank you is a small effort that like the people in that country will go further to help you if you can say those things. If you're in France, if you can say bonjour, bonsoir, parlez-vous anglais, just that like little step like makes them go a little step towards helping you. It's also important to pay attention to the dress codes. In a lot of countries, particularly if you're going to religious sites, they might not allow open shoulders. They might not allow shorts. So pay attention to what those are. Dining and tipping, particularly if you're coming to the United States, look up what the tipping things are. Not cow tipping, but people tipping. If you don't know what they are in the US, I've got a whole video about tipping. Just search for Yellow Productions tipping guidelines. Photography. Some countries, they're like really open towards photography and videos. Others aren't. So just pay attention to those social norms. Now, you also want to make sure you stay on the right side of the law. You don't want to become an accidental criminal. We talked about this in relation to medical stuff. You don't want to accidentally bring in medicine that you're not allowed. But also if you're in Europe, if you're in Italy, you can be fined for sitting on historic monuments. You can be fined for taking seashells from the beach. In Spain, you can be fined for wearing flip-flops while driving. Singapore, famously strict laws. Chewing gum, you can't, spit out your chewing gum. Japan has really strict laws against drunk driving. Thailand enforces laws which, if you insult the monarchy, you can have long prison sentences. In North Korea, you can't take down their propaganda posters. Side note, this picture here. Osigo and I, we did a tour of the demilitarized zone between South and North Korea. These are the buildings that are like whenever they do negotiations between South and North Korea, they do them in these buildings. So you actually get to go in this building and like we actually stood in North Korea because the half of the building is North Korea side. Before we took this tour, we got into a room and some U.S. Army soldiers were like, hey, we need to ask, is anybody on this tour planning to defect to North Korea? I don't know if anybody ever says yes to them on that question, but you know what? There was that one time in recent history where there was a U.S. military person that ran across the border because they were like being sent back home to the USA and they were in trouble. And so they're like, I'm going to run to North Korea. And the North Koreans are like, man, we don't want you either. And sent them back. All right. Okay. And finally, before we go to open Q&A, I want to talk about some steps about how to avoid jet lag when you're at your destination. So avoiding jet lag, I think, really starts from picking a good flight time. And I think you got sort of like two main things when you're looking at arriving at a destination as like times you might want to consider arriving. You might want to consider arriving at your destination in the morning, so you've got plenty of time for outdoor sunlight and outdoor exercise, because that outdoor sunlight and exercise will kind of like wake you up and keep you refreshed so that you can have a good night's sleep. Though arriving someplace in the morning, if you have a really long flight, can lead to a really long, exhausting day. So then you might want to consider arriving at your destination at the perfect time at night, where like by the time you arrive and the time you get to your hotel, it's like 6 o'clock. Time to eat dinner and turn in early, 7 or 8 o'clock, something like that. Avoid the really late night arrivals. Avoid 2 a.m. arrival. Avoid midnight arrivals, 2 a.m. arrivals. You'll get in your hotel super late. You'll only be able to get like 4 or 5 hours sleep. Then it's time to get up. You'll just be on this jet lag hamster wheel for a long time. Picking good planes make a big difference. If you pick a good plane like the Boeing 787 Dreamliner, they offer a much more natural cabin pressure. It's easier to sleep on the newer, nicer planes. Consider starting before you go. You can adjust your sleep an hour one way, an hour another way, 2 hours another way, just to start getting yourself a little bit more on that timeline. Sleep well the night before. It's best if you start from a good place of rest than a place from exhaustion, because sleep on plane generally is not super high quality. When you take off, switch your watch to the destination time as soon as you take off, so you're already in that destination time. When you get there, if it's daytime, go walk, go take a nap. Not a nap. Don't take a nap. Go walk, spend time outside, spend time in the fresh air. Fresh air, walking, sunlight are all things that'll help you adjust your body rhythm to that destination. Don't give in to your nap. Eat when you're hungry, whether it's noon, 11, 2, 4, it doesn't matter. You don't need to pay attention to normal eating times because your body clock's going to be all thrown off. Just eat whenever you're hungry. And then for a few days, you'll want to be going to bed early, 7, 8 o'clock. That's okay. And you know what? You'll probably wake up at 5 a.m., but that's a good excuse to see the sunrise and get to a tourist attraction before anybody else is there. Two final considerations. If you're just going to be in this destination for a couple days, you might want to think about whether you actually want to you want to try to reset, or whether you just want to stick to your normal routine, be like a vampire. If you're going to Vegas, maybe just stay up all night. You know, no, I'm not, you don't not sleep at all, but maybe you just stick to whatever your normal schedule is. And if you've got toddlers, or you've got 2 to 3 year olds or 5-year-olds, you know, yeah, it's going to be a little harder for them to adjust, but try not to let them nap for a really long time in the daytime, because if you do, you're gonna have a hard time getting them back to sleep. Just let them take a little nap in the daytime, and then wake them up. Even though they're gonna be cranky, they want to go back to bed, you need to keep them up so that they then are tired actually at nighttime. All right, that's everything you need to know that I know about traveling internationally. But fellow explorers, what do you want to know that I haven't said yet? And what tips do you have that I missed out or didn't mention?
Fellow explorers, it is now Q&A time. If you've got a question, I've got an answer.
Chris Bates has a great recommendation. He says if you're arriving in the morning, have your hotel check you in one night before. That way you have a room when you arrive. Take a shower and start the day. We did this in London. Great tip, Chris Bates. If you're going to do that, make sure you've called the hotel and they know, because sometimes if you have a hotel the day before and you don't arrive, they cancel out your room. So you want to coordinate with them and be like, hey, I'm arriving early. Can I book the room so that it's available when I get there? Super helpful to be able to get to your room, check in, 6 a.m., shower, all that sort of stuff. Makes a huge difference. Rob recommends for the kiddos, bring fun things for them to keep them awake, like mini Lego sets. That is a great tip. Jonathan says, when I fly to Asia, do I prefer to take red-eye flights or afternoon flights? When we fly to Asia, we tend to prefer taking the flights that, I guess you could call them red-eyes. So they leave here at like, 10, 11 at night or something like that. And then they get us in the morning. It's obnoxiously early in the morning, but I would rather get in the morning than get in late. And then you just get really late when you go to some places. So, yeah. Wu-Tang Life says, you didn't cover scams. You got any tips? I did cover scams, I think. But my tips would be, check out some of the other Yellow Production scam videos. Check out my Bangkok scams video, my Japan scams video, my Vegas scams video. I got lots of content about scams. And Chris Bates says, I work in the hotel business. Yes, call the hotel. Thank you for validating that, Chris. College Full of Love, Sacramento, Houston, 49-minute layover, Houston to Belize. Am I going to regret everything? You might. College Full of Love, I would be prepared mentally and physically to miss that connection. And so I wouldn't plan anything significant the first day in Belize that you get there. And I would have a, whether you're carrying on or checking in or something like that, I would plan your carry-on to have some have some toiletries and some new underwear in the event that you need to be stuck in a hotel that night. Kathy says always try and have a rest day if a trip is a busy one. I totally agree with that. I usually like to look at, particularly my first day at a destination, just to consider that a rest day. I'm sort of like not doing anything that day. And you can plan for rest days in the middle too. Like you can go, and then you can have a day that just has nothing, just to like rest and recover from all the stuff you've been doing. Point Traveler says, do you ever hit the arrival airport lounges for breakfast and shower after landing? The arrival airport lounge, generally no. If I'm like connecting someplace for a long time, yes. If I'm in Singapore for 6 hours before I go someplace else, I'll absolutely take a shower, something in the lounge. I try to do what like Chris Bates does, and I try like if I'm getting to my destination in the morning to like stay at a hotel that has like a lounge, Marriott or Hyatt or something like that. So then when I get to the hotel, even if they can't check me in early, they'll usually give me lounge access so that I can go get breakfast. Sometimes they'll have a arrival suite at that hotel that you can like shower in. So yes, getting freshened up and in fresh clothes is absolutely a way to feel more civilized when you get there. James recommends if you're traveling in an international destination, allow 3 hours between the flights just to be safe. Great time tip, James. Remy says, how long is too long to wait for a lounge? I personally won't wait more than 20 minutes to get into a lounge. Depends how long your layover is, though. So, if you've got a really long layover, it might be worthwhile to wait longer for a lounge. Painkiller93 says, my first trip to Japan was a guided tour. They took care of everything except dinners, and I still had free time in the evenings. Thank you for that report. West Coast Toys and Gaming says, if you're traveling to Taiwan, make sure to register for their tourism lottery. Yes, Taiwan has a thing where, like, if you travel there, you can, like, win some things if you register, so do that. Alex's tip for scams, if it sounds too good to be true, it is. That is a good tip, Alex. Road says, what would you say to someone who finds all this too daunting to bother traveling internationally? I would say take a guided tour. They'll take care of a lot of this stuff for you. And it's easy. Here we go. Okay. Painkiller93 says, and for the love of God, if you can avoid it, do not pull your kids out of school to travel. Painkiller93, I will say in this case, to each their own on that opinion. My mom pulled me out of school all the time to travel, and I'm glad she did, because I had some great memories and experiences from those, and I don't feel I missed much when I was, in kindergarten. You get pulled out of school for a week, you're not behind all that much, really. The Phantom Traveler is departing Tokyo. Hit up the shower before security, especially if you're there in the summer. Best 1,000 yen you'll ever spend, and they give you a nice beverage to boot. Thank you for the tip, Phantom Traveler. Yes, in Tokyo, they have these like public showers that you can use, so thank you for that tip. Henry, thank you for the super chat. Henry says, thoughts on Clear? Have you ever had it? I have never had Clear. I have the Amex Platinum card that would cover Clear if I just signed up for it, but literally at the airports that I frequent, the Clear line is not shorter than the TSA pre-check line. I could wax on philosophical for Clear for a long time, but it's like, it was supposed to be the system set up to be like, oh, get Clear so that we can verify your identity in a way that is like better and more secure than the TSA agents do. But it turns out that like TSA doesn't trust Clear to actually verify people's identity. So you go from the Clear machine, and then a person who stands by the Clear machine then takes that person over to the Customs and Border Patrol person to be like, they're cool. And then they go like, okay, they're cool. And then you go through. So I feel like it's a kludge. I feel like it could be super great, but to be like, oh, here's a way to do identity checks that are faster than the Customs and Border Patrol ones. But I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing in my opinion right now. But if somebody else has Clear and they're like, Chris, you're totally off base, let me know. People who say they love it are people who find the TSA or TSA pre-check lines are really, really long at the airport they go to, and Clear lets them kind of like cut the line. Remy asks if I recommend reputable health insurance companies for traveling abroad. Our health insurance covers us when we travel abroad, so we've never had to get like other travel insurance. So there we go. We don't really have a lot of choices, so we get that. We get that through OC Girl's employer. Enjoy the rest of your evening, Chris. Look forward to next week's stream. Happy travels, Henry. Thank you very much. Grant says, Clear has gotten me through the line faster than TSA pre-check line once ever. All right, so there's once, one data point. And Grant, maybe if you get it free, maybe it's worthwhile, but if you have to pay for it, maybe it's not. Maddie says, good morning. Good morning, Maddie. All right. West Coast Toys says, I somehow feel it's okay to take kids out of school when they're in elementary still. All right, thank you for sharing your perspective on kids out of school, West Coast gaming, particularly kindergarten. All right. Alex says, I feel like the general tip for traveling internationally is the same as doing a first solo trip. Make sure you understand the basics and it works out. That's how it was for me on my first solo trip to DC. Points Travel says, who wants to be in school anyway? And Kathy says, I took my kids out of school to travel. And Rob says, if your kids are internal teachers, it can be good. International teachers. Paint Killer says, I'm a teacher, and when they come back, it's hard to catch them up, especially for high school physics. I get high school physics could definitely be a whole different ball game. So, all right. Ernest says, how important is it to have prescription meds in their original bottles? Okay to have those in pill cases. I would absolutely have them in their original bottles so that when they look at them, they know what they are. My 2 cents. Ati, thank you for the support. Appreciate it very much. Some mail says kids get educated through travel. I think they do. And we got a lot of passion on the school or no school. Alex says, I was thinking of the scene from Mr. Deeds with the homeless guy. Schools for fools. Look at me. All right. And Jonathan recommends if you have allergies, I would research the foods in the specific country you're going to. For example, French foods use a lot of dairy. Good tip, too. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the giveaway.
Yes, it's the time you've been waiting for. It's time for the giveaway.
All right, fellow explorers, it is time for the giveaway. And in every video, I always give away a Yellow Productions crew shirt to someone who can answer one of my lucky questions. My question for you is, in the first picture that I put up in this live stream, I had a passport and I had a boarding pass. The first person to tell me what that flight was from, what city it was from, and what city it was to will win that Yellow Productions crew shirt shipped anywhere to them in the world. If you don't remember it, you can go look at the thumbnail for this video. It's in there too. All right, if you don't win one and you want to buy one, you can pick one up at the Yellow Productions shop, shop.yellow-productions.com. And if you wonder, Chris, when is the next live stream? You can pick one. You can sign up for the Yellow Productions update email list. That'll send you an email every time I've got a topic and a time scheduled for the live stream. All right, and you know what?
And now we have a winner chicken dinner.
Congratulations to West Coast Toys and Gaming, because let's see, passport 1 right here. Let's put that back up. Let's put this up. That's right. That boarding pass was Singapore Airlines business class from Singapore to Taipei. West Coast Toys and Gaming. You win the Yellow Productions crew shirt. Send me an email. You'll find my email in the description of this video. It's chris@yellow-productions.com. Let me know your shirt size. Let me know your address, and I will get that headed out right to you. All right, fellow explorers. Always a pleasure to hang out with you. If you have not hit the like button on this video, please do so on your way out. It really helps me out with the YouTube algorithm, lets them know that you like the video so they can spread it to more people. And as usual, I will not say goodbye because I'll see you in the next video.